My presentation is over the Colosseum. So a little bit of a background for the Colosseum. It's located in Rome, Italy. It's next to the Palatine Hill and the Roman Forum. It's the area where all the emperors built up their houses and palaces, I guess. The construction of the Colosseum began in around 70 AD during the Emperor Vespasian's reign, and then construction was completed in around 80 AD in Emperor Titus's reign, which is Vespasian's son. The Colosseum is also referred to as the Flavian Amphitheater or the Amphitheatrium Caesareum. It's called the Flavian Amphitheater because it was built during the Flavian dynasty. That's with Vespasian and Titus and his sons. So the size and dimensions, the Colosseum is an oval shape, as you can see in this photo right here. It measures 189 meters long and 156 meters wide, while also being 48 meters tall. The arena itself was only 83 meters by 48 meters. So this small little platform right here. But the Colosseum was big enough to hold about 50,000 spectators. So the main materials that it was made out of is made out of limestone, tufa, brick, concrete, wood, marble, and travertine. This picture right here is tufa stone, and up here is travertine brick. These were the two most common used materials in the Colosseum, and the original one. So the exterior architecture. So the Colosseum is built up of 4 different layers. There's one all right through here. It's composed of level upon level of travertine arches, which are these arches right here. There's approximately 80 arches for the entire thing. The very top layer is referred to as the attic, and it's a solid wall with the windows popping out every so often. The columns at the very bottom base are Tuscan style. The next ones up are Ionic, so it has the little loops over here, and then the third layer is Corinthian, so it has the leafy arrangement at the top. The top with the frieze was a series of corbels that had that concave profile. So as you can see up in this image, right up here are the corbels, and that concave style is that indent that it has right there. So the interior architecture. So there's 2 layers of the underground arena section. So there's room for cages, lifts, and ramps for the beasts, and also all the fighters who are prisoners, and just equipment. It's the kind of behind the scenes area. The floor of the arena was probably wood, and it was probably oak wood. It was laid out on top of the underground walls as seen in other photos, as well as more photos coming. It also held drainage pipes that led directly into the underground sewers. It also held 5 different seating arrangements, and depending on your social ranking is depending on where you sat. The closer you were to the arena, the higher ranking you were. So the senators and the emperor had his own little section, and then the higher up you were the lower classes. So if you're in the attic, and there's 2 layers that sat in the attic, every other layer had its own little seating arrangement. So the interior was typically decorated with statues, and there was reserved spots for senators that were carved into the first set of blocks at the base layer of the Colosseum. Here are some photos that I personally took of the Colosseum. This is kind of the walkway areas. Up here would be the seating arrangements. They're really pretty flat right now. This is where some of to show some of the statues of what it would, or statues and like other materials that were used in the original that they found at the Colosseum. Here's an image. This kind of gives a little better look of the underground section. So right above here is the would be where the arena floor would be. So this little spot right across there would span all the way across, and there'd be a built-up wall for the seating, so the senators and emperor don't get hurt. And then over here is some more decorations and stones that were found in the area that were locked up. Each stone of these have some sort of writing in it, and then I don't fully remember what that was. I believe it was a part of one of the arches, and then there was some graffiti in there. It was also known that spectators would write graffiti in the Colosseum, like in the stadium, as most stadiums do have. So some restorations and changes that have been made. So much of the original structure is not present anymore, except for its main supporting blocks and the outer structures. Like the bulk of the Colosseum is what is still left. So I pulled out this one quote of in my article, how the Colosseum benefited from repeated restorations as well as key legislations, which controlled both the forces of construction and demolition. It's kind of just talking about how it kind of, I'm highlighting the point of repeated restoration. It went through a lot of different restoration periods of people wanting to return it to its glory time, but also keep it how it once was and how it is. And then another point is that it is also known that many of the blocks that were from the Colosseum throughout history were taken and used for other uses. So a big point in the Colosseum, an important aspect, is the water system. So it had its own drainage and sewage system that ran through the Colosseum. It had connecting tunnels to the aqueducts that allowed flowing water to fountains within the Colosseum. And the fountains were typically found at the base of where the seating was. So right where you would come up in and before you go up into your stands. It was hot in Italy during some of these games, and people needed a drink or were thirsty, so they had freestanding water like a water fountain right there. It also wasn't proven that the water was used for sea battles in the Colosseum specifically. It has been proven in other amphitheaters, but it's been a common misconception that it was people, they flooded the Colosseum itself and held these sea battles. But they don't see any, archaeologists don't see any signs of holding that aspect. So a social significance, these are two quotes that I pulled out from research. So the first one is reinforcing the hierarchical nature of the Roman society. This is by the 5-tier seating level. The low, like I said earlier, the lower you are in the seating arrangements, the higher ranking you are. So no matter what, you can't really escape that hierarchical status in the society, even though it's a place for everybody to come and enjoy the shows. And then the next one was about Christianity and the significance of the reversal of the arena. So the arena was originally for bloody gladiator contests. There's a lot of unmoral in today's sense, in the Christian sense, type of show. And then later on throughout history, the Colosseum became the symbol of the new religious triumph over its persecution, because they've succeeded. Another point that I'd like to make is that this was Vespasian dedicated this to Emperor Nero, and Nero is known for his persecution of the Christian people. So it's kind of a little side note about Christianity and in the Roman Empire and how they kind of coincide. So gladiator games. So the Colosseum is mainly known for its gladiator games. That's where most people think of the Colosseum. So the games are common occurrences within the wealthy. Before the Colosseum was even built, it was mainly for elites. They held parties and had gladiator fights for their friends and in their parties. The games were typically man versus man. And then it also had beast hunts. So it was man versus beast. The amphitheater, as I said earlier, is oval shaped or elliptical. And it was also really considered like that it's the sizing is considered optimal for gladiator games as well as for the best view for everybody within the stadium. This is another photo that I took, which is pretty accurate because wherever you go in the stadium, you get a really nice view of where the whole platform is. I couldn't really see any bad spots, even though you only could go up to 2 layers. So also continued in the gladiator games. Many gladiators were slaves that were captured in battle or criminals, but many were volunteers for this. They wanted the glory and the fame of being a great warrior in front of their peers and in front of the emperor. So here's a ancient source that I quoted about how men train and exert themselves for the worldly contests and think it is their honors, glory. If they win through with people looking on and the emperor himself present. So like I said, they're wanting to be glorious. They're not really thinking of the aspect of death. They're just want that fame. And then slaves and criminals, some of them would be offered their freedom if they performed well in the games. That's what they'd be fighting for. It wasn't a common occurrence. Not all of them got this option, but some did win their freedom. And because of the fame gained from these games, they turned it down and continued to fight as a gladiator, or they accepted it, but still continued to fight as a gladiator. So the conclusion, so the Colosseum is just an amazing example of Roman art and architecture and culture itself. It was a large area for all classes to visit, and watch a spectacle of the gladiator games of these beast hunts. It holds many of the design elements of Roman architecture, such as the use of arches and the 3 different column types, as well as the covert things. And then much of the Colosseum itself has been restored, but the importance is that what is still left in the context that we can still get from the monument. This monument has lasted throughout time, throughout history, between fire, all these multiple fires, wars, earthquakes. This building is still there, and much of its bones are still there, which is an important note to make. It was a prime example of Roman architecture and ingenuity. It was a place for all to enjoy, but also still that held that presence of a social hierarchy that was present in the Roman society. All right, thank you. That was it. And here's my citations.